From West Virginia.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to vitiate the quorum call.
Without objection.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I come to the floor today to voice my very strong support for the tax reform legislation that will come before this United States Senate this week. This bill will empower and power our economic growth and provide great opportunities for American workers. It will also lead to increased wages. It will help our small businesses expand. I've said often on the Senate floor that small businesses in West Virginia comprise 95% of the businesses in West Virginia and over 50% of the workforce. Small businesses want to thrive and they want to expand. It will provide much-needed tax relief for middle-class working families in my state and across this nation. And it will also, for many in the working class, the increase in the standard deduction will lower rates and provide a much simpler process. I've talked about this on the floor a lot. I think one of the things that's underemphasized and not talked about it in this great tax relief package is the simplification model that many Americans really want and deserve in the tax code. So let's talk about our state of West Virginia. In my state of West Virginia, 83% of individual tax filers take the standard deduction, 83%. This bill will nearly double that deduction from $6,300 to $12,000 for an individual, or from $12,700 to $24,000 for married couples. That's for 83% of the filers in my state of West Virginia. For a West Virginian already taking the current standard deduction, the provision means less taxable income and a lower tax bill. More money in their pockets at the end of the day that they've earned. Others who itemize will find that they are actually better off with an increased standard deduction. So they make, at tax time, well, they'll make the determination, should I take the standard deduction? I used to itemize in the past. They may make the determination, I'm really better off taking the standard deduction because it's almost doubling. That's what I'm going to do. So that means they'll benefit financially and avoid the complications that come along with itemizing. Families with children will benefit from a child tax credit that is doubled. This provides real help to working families trying to afford education costs, pay rent or their mortgage, and simply make it to the end of the month. Whether they want to put money aside for their future or they need money to get through the tough costs of child care or health costs, this more money is a significant factor in a lot of people's family. They're working hard. They want and deserve more money. I was interested, there was an editorial in my local newspaper today in a negative way about this bill, and it's funny, but it's not humorous. They actually don't mention this. For the 83% of West Virginia earners that are going to be having the benefits of this simply by doubling the standard deduction and by doubling the child tax credit. This bill also eliminates the Affordable Care Act's individual mandate, which is a penalty that mainly impacts the middle class. Let's talk about this. In 2015, more than 34,000 West Virginians were penalized under this mandate. 81% of those people, 81% of the 34,000 people who were penalized with a tax penalty because they chose or could not afford to buy insurance or they chose not to, they were assessed a tax penalty for that decision, and 81% of those people earned under $50,000 a year. There's been a lot of misinformation about this provision. Let me just clarify. No one is being forced off Medicaid or a private health insurance plan by the elimination of the individual mandate. By eliminating the individual mandate, we're simply stop penalizing and taxing people who either can't afford or decide not to buy a health insurance plan. I, for one, want as many people, everyone, to purchase and be able to purchase a health insurance plan. But that's a personal decision at the end of the day that a family makes. And if you opt not to purchase, which I would hope you wouldn't, your government shouldn't be taxing you, and that's what's happened. Working families will also benefit for the higher wages and increased opportunities that this bill will create. The Tax Foundation found that this bill will create more than 40 900 jobs in the state of West Virginia. Doesn't sound like much, I guess, to a larger state. To a small state, almost 5,000 jobs is significant. A typical middle-class family in our state would see their after-tax income grow by over $1,900. And nationwide, this bill could create as many as 925,000 jobs in this analysis. Significant. These new jobs and higher wages result in part from lower tax rates and the shift to a territorial system that will make America more competitive. We want our jobs to be competitive not just here, but globally. I mean, let's face it, we're in a global economy. Many of the companies, particularly the larger companies that are employing over 30% of West Virginia workers, are competing globally. And if we can make it more competitive for those businesses to compete globally, that's going to be higher wages, more jobs, more products made here in the United States with our American workers. Quite frankly, our current system now is driving American companies and jobs overseas. The United States has the highest statutory corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. That drives behavior. That drives behavior when you look at investing. After 30 years was the last time we modernized this, and after 30 years, it is past time to modernize our business tax code and make America more competitive. Hire more people, raise wages, buy more equipment, invest more capital. We know by estimates, and some of these say they're conservative, that there is more than $2 trillion with a T, $2 trillion in U.S. corporate earnings kept overseas. This tax reform package can bring those resources home, leading, again, more jobs, higher wages here at home. It's important that communities across our country benefit from this growing economy. Half of our nation's job growth since 2010, almost 8 years ago, half of our job growth has only occurred in 2% of the counties. Half of our nation's job growth since 2010 has occurred in only 2% of our counties across this country. And I'll add, none of those counties are in the state of West Virginia. So that demonstrates to me the need to lower income, that in order to help lower income areas, we need to attract more investment, more opportunity to create more jobs. That's why I'm very glad to support this tax reform bill, because it also includes a provision called the Investing in Opportunity Act that Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina introduced, that I was a proud co-sponsor. This bill is designed as part of this tax reform bill to attract investment into areas that have been left behind in our nation's economic recovery, including areas like my state of West Virginia that continue to struggle in the wake of the Obama administration anti-coal policies. Besides making the tax code more competitive and helping to create and attract investment to economically distressed areas, this bill will also help our small businesses. We know that small businesses are a major economic driver in our economy. As I said earlier, half of West Virginia's workforce in the private sector is employed in a small business. So this bill will provide significant needed tax relief to our small businesses. I've been traveling across the state, listening to small business roundtables, talking to a lot of people. And what I've heard is that small businesses, they're eager to take the tax relief they get to raise wages so they can keep their good employees. They want to pay them more. They want to hire more additional workers so they expand their work. Or buy new equipment. I met a communications company, they want to invest in more IT. These investments will have a positive effect on the economy in local communities across the country, those that are not in that 2% that had the growth over the last 8 years. I believe this tax reform bill will help the nation as a whole and the people I represent. I am excited to have this bill on the floor of the United States Senate this week. The Senate Finance Committee, of which the President is a terrific member from the neighboring state of Pennsylvania, has held over 70 hearings on tax reform and put together a very good piece of legislation after listening for 70 hearings, many amendments process, many constituents, many individuals who are impacted by this. The House has acted. President Trump stands ready to sign a tax reform measure into law. What remains now is for the Senate to do their work, for us to do our work, pass this legislation. Some senators will have a choice. Soon, senators will make a choice. We can accept slow economic growth that has occurred over the past decade, or we can take big and bold action. So to my colleagues, I say, if you want to help the middle class benefit from tax cuts, higher wages, and more job opportunities, then you should vote for this bill. If you want America to become more competitive in the global economy, then you should vote for this bill. If you want small businesses to expand and thrive, then you should vote for this bill. Our country needs this. Our constituents are demanding it. And I call on my colleagues to join with me to pass this bill on the Senate floor this week.